Hi, this is Carl again, and this is part 3 of the discussion which I've decided to put together on Lingua language learning methodology. And what I want to do in this particular part is just to revisit once again some of the reasons as to why I decided to go into teaching modern foreign languages, especially independently, and also why I decided to dedicate as much time as possible, even today, to looking into developing, analysing effective means of teaching modern foreign languages to other people. And if I go back to the time when I first started out as a student teacher here in South Yorkshire in 2004-2005, when I first began to teach at beginners level Spanish and then just a few months later at advanced level German, what I found was that the majority of students were adult learners, and had started out by attending a class with as many as between, let's say, 25 and 30 people. And what I noticed was that 2 months into the academic year, when I first started teaching, was that the number of people who had initially enrolled onto the courses had in fact dropped quite steeply, by at least a third in each of the 4 classes which I began to teach. So that made me ask myself, what were some of the reasons as to why people left during these initial weeks? And obviously there are many reasons for such an occurrence to happen. People require babysitters, people have work commitments, people feel as though the course doesn't respond necessarily to the needs of the individual student. Many people, as I've come to learn, especially over the last few months, well even years, is that many people enroll onto such courses because they want to use the modern foreign language for holiday purposes. They want to be able to speak with the natives, they want to gain an understanding of the language, and obviously they want to be able to speak the language for the purposes of effective communication. But what tends to happen, or what tended to happen back then in 2004-2005, and perhaps arguably still happens even today, is that many learners are bound by the obligations of assessment criteria, the course syllabus, learning objectives. The teacher himself or herself feels pressured and under a specific deadline to fulfill each of the topics which has to be covered, the learning criteria which apply to each of those topics, and consequently many learners feel as though they're not being given the opportunity to speak the language as much as they'd like to, and obviously as well because the lessons only occur, let's say, a couple of hours per week, if not less. That doesn't actually equate to enough time which would enable the majority of people to gain that linguistic proficiency which they need within a short space of time. And what we have to consider as well is the fact that the more the teacher feels pressured by the time restrictions in which he or she has to fulfill certain learning objectives, and also given the nature of the learning objectives, if those learning objectives aren't created to meet the needs of the learners, and the vocabulary and the phrases which apply to any particular course or topic area aren't necessarily free-flowing, aren't necessarily words or phrases which would be used or would enable the learners to gain an understanding of how the language works from, well, a grammatical point of view, but obviously as well from the point of view of someone who realises that effective modern foreign language learning comes through learning vocabulary which carries meaning, and obviously which to a native speaker wouldn't sound too wooden or unrealistic in its wording and also its sound. So if we consider, let's say that around 20 people have enrolled on a course and are learning a new modern foreign language for the first time, and that the course takes place for no more than 90 minutes per week, then obviously you have to give consideration to the fact that the amount of individual contact time between the student and the teacher, if you can make such a division of time, isn't necessarily all that great. Obviously we have to bear in mind as well that learners prefer to, well, some learners prefer to work with other colleagues within the classroom, some prefer to work independently, and while it could be argued that the majority of learners see themselves as visual learners and prefer to rely as much as possible on having a reference there in front of them, whether it be a text, a written passage, or something that they want to try to work out in the written form before they speak it. That, in a way, contradicts with what the majority of people are actually trying to achieve, which is to gain oral linguistic proficiency. So what I think we need to do, and this is certainly something which I've done as well over time, is to try to integrate a means of learning and a double approach to learning, whereby the learners can improve their oral linguistic proficiency on the basis of something which they have written down in front of them. But obviously what we have to do as teachers is to try to encourage students and any form of learners as far as possible is to not to become too reliant on written forms of language, because obviously we need them to be able to develop their oral linguistic proficiency and gain confidence in using words correctly, become confident in pronouncing the words correctly, and adopting an intonation which is characteristic of native speakers of a modern foreign language, because otherwise learners will find, and also I have found in the past, is that they won't necessarily be able to gain the linguistic proficiency and detect a sense of progress in a quicker or as quick a time as they might have liked when they first started out to learn the modern foreign language. So that is what I wanted to talk about here in the third part of this video, is the fact that we need to understand as far as possible what the learners want to achieve, but at the same time we have to have an appreciation of how they learn themselves, what their preferred learning styles are, and slowly but surely get them to have an open mind as regards the numerous learning techniques, as innovative, effective and original as they may be, because those will arguably help them to gain a realization that they do have the potential and the ability to improve their oral linguistic proficiency within a very short space of time, rather than a period of time which would equate to a number of years, let's say between 5 and 10 years. And arguably some people who have learnt languages in the past and who have continued to learn any specific one foreign language for such a long period of time would be able to identify with that point of view. So we need, as far as possible, to understand learners, get them to realise just how many language learning techniques and strategies there are out there which they would be able to use to fulfil their own learner needs, and arguably this would create a much more positive attitude amongst the general public where language learning and positive, effective modern foreign language learning is concerned.